Welcome to another episode of Chisom G. If you haven't already, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and also put on that notification bell to make sure that you get, new videos and notifications about things that are posted on this channel. So, as we all know, the month of May, actually, not everyone might know, but some people might know that this month is Mental Health Awareness Month. So today I have two lovely ladies, Charmaine and Azine, who are both my colleagues at the medical school that I attend. Charmaine is currently a first-year medical student. Yay, let's all clap for her.
Yay!
Who is interested in child neurology. So put her in your prayers as well as she goes through the whole 3 years of medical school as well, and in order to become a child neurologist. So we have Charmaine, and then we have Azine, who's a fourth-year medical student who's actually about to start residency in June or July.
Yay!
Yay! And she will be specializing in emergency medicine.
Woo woo!
So Charmaine and Azine, they're both two of my colleagues who I adore so much. So we're here just to talk a little bit more about mental health, resources that might be available to, other professional students, other college students as well who might be seeking some. We'll also be talking about our experience here at our program and how, I guess our mental health has been affected. Well, so I don't know, Azine and Charmaine, is there anything else you would like to say about yourselves? I know I didn't say everything, so if there's anything you want to mention.
I think you got most of it, Gladys.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Really? Beautiful. So guys, so one question that I have is, being in this program, there's no, and another thing is that we're both Nigerian. So that adds to the other things that can definitely add as a mental strain to us. So the reason why I even mentioned that we're Nigerian is because in the Nigerian community, right, even in the community generally, like even in America, but particularly in the Nigerian community, mental health isn't really talked about, right? Even it's almost stigmatized once you say, oh, I have depression, oh, I'm anxious, or I feel this type of way, where when you're diagnosed with something by a psychiatrist, usually the first thing that they say is that, oh, God forbid, right? God forbid, we don't believe in that, we don't know what that is, or it's a demon or whatever. So it's not really something that's really spoken about. So I think most of us didn't really grow up thinking, oh, mental health is something I should take care of, right? So what does taking care of your mental health look like, now that you've grown up, you no longer really live with your parents? Because now it's okay. Before it was like, oh, okay, there's physical health, eat right, do this and do that. But your parents never said, oh, you should see a therapist, you should do this, it was never it was never a part of the conversation. So I guess, what does mental health, taking care of it, look like for you?
So for me, definitely exercising, definitely eating healthy, because that also like helps with your mood.
Mm-hmm.
I like reading books. I like taking walks. I'm very introverted, and so for me, taking care of my mental health is surrounding myself with people when I do hang out with them who boost my energy. Because there are some people who are like very draining, and that can really, really affect your mental health, because you feel like you have to live up to how they view you. So if you're hanging out with somebody who loves to party a lot, or who likes to just always be very hyper, and that's just not the vibe that you want that day, then it's up to you to set that boundary. And so setting boundaries with people who you don't really like hanging out with, but you find yourself doing it anyway, is something that I think is very, very important for your mental health. Saying no, oh my gosh, saying no is probably the most important thing that you can do for yourself, especially when it's something you don't want to do. Say no. It's okay to say no. No is a full sentence. No period. No full stop. It's so important to just say no when something doesn't align with your values or beliefs, what you want to do for the day. If it's not paying you, if it's wasting your time, Say no. That I think is my number one advice to preserve your mental health. Say no.
Wow.
Um, so I
Yeah.
mean, I'm gonna pass the mic to you.
To Charmaine, I mean, it's
I agree with a lot of what Azimi said. I used to take walks, like I'm getting back into it now, but I also like to read novels. I read every day.
Mhm.
And I think that the overarching theme of taking care of your mental health is making sure that you don't lose touch with things that bring you joy or things that help you cope in general. And they should be healthy coping mechanisms. Let me stress that healthy. So,
Mm,
if you do have like you see yourself drinking more or you stop caring about yourself, like Zane said, physical health and everything, definitely I think getting a therapist. I believe everybody should have a therapist, whether you have
right.
trauma or not. It's
Yeah.
just healthy to talk things out.
Yeah.
So that, and for me, like I said, I read. I'm getting back into taking walks. I crochet. I do things that like bring me joy. And that's how I take care of my mental health. If I do agree with the people being draining, I try not to surround myself with that. But what one thing I will say that this pandemic has taught me, I know that if you see me in the hallway, you'll probably say, "Oh my gosh, she's an extrovert." I am an introvert. I'm an introvert, and I know that the people that know me will probably be like, "That's a lie," but it's not. This pandemic has really taught me how to say no. It's
Yeah.
taught me that I have so much comfort in being by myself that I don't need to like appease everybody wanting to hang out or go out or and whatnot.
Yeah.
But I
Mm,
already knew I like to eat food. That's my main going out. I like to eat. But yeah, I think that you should just stay focused on what makes you happy. Because at the end of the day, if you don't take care of your mental health, you're not even going to be fun to be around, like with your
right.
friends or anybody else in public.
Yeah. Most
Right.
definitely.
And I also want to add on to what she said,
Mhm.
because you made very good points, Charmaine. And something that you said was along the lines of like basically staying true to yourself. I think something, especially in a program like ours, where like you're with your classmates from the age of 17 until like 20, your mid 20s, and it's very hard to form your own identity with people that you're spending your formative years with. And
Yeah.
so it's like you can be one person when you're 17, and it's expected that you're that person until you graduate at 24, 25. And it kind of doesn't give you much room to grow. And so you have your newfound interests like that come with age, but it kind of becomes hard when people have known you for what feels like most of your life, and you feel like you cannot leave that perception
Yeah.
that they have of you. But it's like I just want, whoever's listening to this to remember that you can't please everybody, right? Not everyone's gonna like you. You're not gonna be everyone's cup of tea. And so it's important to just sit true to who you are, like walk in your truth, sit in your truth, speak your truth, because whether you lie or not, people are not gonna like you. Somebody out there is not gonna like you. So you might as well be yourself, and the
Yeah.
people who like you will gravitate towards you. And I think that's something that also helped me with my mental health, because I mean, I never cared too much about appeasing people,
Mhm.
but sometimes especially with your close friends, it can become kind of hard to grow around people who kind of expect you to stay the same for as long as they've known you. And it's not good for your mental health if you feel like you're stagnant, and especially when you feel like you're stagnant around people who you thought loved you like
Mhm.
unconditionally. So I would say, like, no matter who likes it or not, walk in your truth. That's the most important thing. And the people who want to stay around you will stay around you.
Wow.
That
Powerful.
was beautifully said. Yes, I
Beautifully
completely
said.
I'm tipping
agree.
my hat.
Mic drop. Drop the mic. Over. All right. Thank you everyone for joining. I like how it's time. No, but no, I agree. I definitely agree. And it seems like another question that I have is, the way that you guys all are all describing mental health and how you take care of it by saying no, by owning your truth, by doing things that please you and that you like, getting rid of the friends that don't really encourage the growth in you. Do you think that this is more of mental health or it's just a part of growing up?
That's a very good question, Gladys.
Because yeah, continue.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, like, do you think it's just a part of growing up? Most of us, even if you ask our parents now, it's like they've lost a lot of friends. They found who they were, and like maybe the friends that they used to have no longer really serve a purpose in their lives anymore. And so like now their acquaintances, they don't even keep in touch with them. But does it? I mean, it can still be a part of our mental health. Maybe as we get older, realize that it's something that we need to nurture, as well, because I mean, you guys can answer that question too. And the second question also is like, it seems like we're all prioritizing mental health, right? And then it's all going back to like me, right? Looking inwardly. How can mental health, like, can it ever look like helping someone else? There's people who actually think oh, mental health is volunteering, it's helping this person, is doing that person. Do you think that's also a part? Do you think that could be a part of taking care of your mental health? Those are two questions, by the way, but yeah.
So for your first question, I do think that it is part of just growing up. When I was younger, I used to wonder how people in their 30s and 40s were so comfortable in their own skin. Like I used to just always be so jealous of, like, when I would just see, especially like young, like, or middle-aged Black women, whenever I see them walking around and just like being themselves unapologetically, I used to just get so jealous and think, how are you so comfortable in your own skin? And I think it's because, like,
maturity.
Exactly. Like, I think there's a level of emotional and mental maturity that comes with age, hopefully for some people, right? But I think there is some level that comes with age. And so it is part of growing up. But I also think that it takes a level of, you have to nurture that within yourself. Like, unfortunately, for some people, like, maturity doesn't come with age. Unfortunately, it doesn't come with age. And so you have to be able to nurture that within you. And I think that a lot of life experiences can teach you, because even us in our mid-20s, I think it's us having this conversation is us also trying to nurture like our own self-growth by talking about what we've done and what we're still doing, what we want to do to preserve our mental health. And so I do think at a certain age, you start to have these conversations with yourself so that by your mid-30s and your mid-40s, you start feeling more confident in yourself. So that people who at least were like me when I was a teenager, when they look at you, they're like, damn, how was she so comfortable in her own skin? Exactly. So I do think like it does come with age, but you still have to be able to nurture that within yourself.
Yeah, most definitely. I agree. And I was gonna say that what was I was gonna say, people would say that the 30s is the new 20s, because like 30s is when, like, you're most likely, hopefully, if you've been grinding in your 20s or so, 30s you should be settled in your career. And again, like what you mentioned, like your mental health should be at a different level if it's something that you've been nurturing. It's really like the work that you put in your 20s, and it shows up more like in your 30s, and you're truly able to enjoy those.
Exactly.
Yeah. Charmaine, did you want to say something?
Yes, so I completely agree. I think that, being able to nurture your mental health, it does come with some level of maturity, just like Azine said, with the emotional intelligence as you grow older. But I also think that, your environment does play a part in it, because like if you were surrounded by the same people you were stagnant with, like the exact explanation she gave with being jealous of people being comfortable being who they are, I used to think that all the time too. But I feel like when you go off to college, or like, I guess some people might have started learning about their mental health a little bit earlier if they went to like boarding school or anything, because it's the first time you're away from your parents and you're trying to become your own person. So like when you surround yourself around people who are probably not mentally mature, it does make your growth stagnant. You probably are still immature, but when you do surround yourself with people who are trying to hone their mental health, you have no choice but to also hone your mental health. But it is more of a personal journey, because you can't, like, just because someone else is doing it doesn't necessarily that's gonna influence
They
you.
look like an outlier sometimes, and it's like, oh, this she thinks she's brand new.
Exactly.
She's brand new, going on vacation, going to therapy. Who does she think she is? Telling her she
No,
can't right
exactly. But I also think that it's just like it's a personal journey, because unfortunately some people they don't mature with age. So for those people that don't mature with age, they're probably not actually stimulating their mental as much as they should. So their mental health is probably crappy, even though outwardly they may be successful. They may be like, they may seem happy, but on the inside they're actually broken, and they just haven't taken care of that.
Yeah, most definitely. Wow. Thank you, ladies. And so, I mean, on the topic of your circle, do you feel like, so, we've been in this program, this is a 7-year program that we attend, right? And again, we're with the same people, some where there's people like, we just see, sometimes there's an influx, there's outflux, there's a different set of people that you see every year. There's, sometimes you're with the same people, it all depends. But, being in this program for 7 years, and meeting the people that you've met, including faculty and staff, how would you say pursuing higher education? It doesn't even have to be, I mean, we're all in medical school, but for other people out there who might be in graduate school pursuing their PhD, how would you say that it's affected your own personal mental health and your views on it?
So I'm going to try to tie this question into your previous second question.
Yeah. Oh yes. I forgot about that.
So for me, I never really wanted to be a doctor. I've never wanted to be, I'll be honest, it wasn't until my third year of med school, so like 6 years into this program, that I realized I actually wanted to be a doctor.
Wow.
And like you touched on this earlier about like being Nigerian and like all this pressure that comes with being Nigerian, or even just being the child of immigrants. It's like, we all know like that, the trio of like lawyer, engineer, doctor. And so it's like, if it's not one of those three things, then it's like, it's not a career worth pursuing. And being in a program like this, where when you enter, it's like, there's an underlying feeling of like, I have to finish no matter what. And so there's no real opportunity to be a real adult. You don't get to have the experiences that your peers from high school had. You don't get to really experience life outside of medicine. And so it can feel like a bubble that you cannot escape until you graduate. So imagine just spending like 7 years of your life in what feels like you're just cornered all the time. And not feeling like you have adequate support from the people who can give it to you. And I think for me, luckily, like my life goal has just always been to help people. And so my mental health, it was shot in this program. I'm not gonna lie, like it it really did some damage to me. But I think when I started my third year of med school, and that's when I realized I wanted to be a doctor, I think my rotation experiences, being able to help people, like just seeing what it's like to see people see you as their doctor, especially being a Black woman, it's like the way people light up when they see you, it can feel very, very uplifting. So I just to answer your other question, helping other people can be, volunteering, some form of altruism, that can be very stimulating for your mental health, provided that that's what you feel like your life goal is. And if it's not, that's not selfish, like it's not selfish to not want to help people. But if being in this program, if a certain part of it can help you with your mental health because it aligns with your life goal, then I would say I don't necessarily regret it. But it did do a little bit of damage, because not everyone that's in a superior position cares about your mental health, and they're the ones who can provide the resources for you. And so you have to end up looking for it yourself. And sometimes it's like you don't feel like you have the time to go outside of like your school or your program to look for these things. You don't have the money, you don't have insurance. Like, there's so many reasons why like higher education needs to have these resources, because it's like, if you are expecting 17-year-olds to thrive on their own in a rigorous environment, then you should not be a superior in this field. And that's just the reality.
It's important to advertise it too.
Exactly.
I didn't realize until 5th or 4th year that the school provided therapists.
They don't even talk about it. And it's like you have to almost divulge what you're going through for them to tell you that they have the resource. I remember that was my first experience with therapy. I had to divulge to our wellness director what I was experiencing in order for her to even offer the services. And it's just like that's no one's business but my own. But it just oftentimes feels like nobody really cares about how you feel inside except for your peers who are also struggling.
Yeah. Wow.
Sorry.
Oh, sure.
That was very well said. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
So for me, like, you know, I know this program is advertised as a 7-year program. I have struggled. I have struggled. I am, God willing, I actually graduate in 3 years. I would have been here for 9 years. 1 year was, you know, like, it's just like Azini said, like, when you need resources, they don't advertise it, and when you try to get it, like it's too late. But it's I feel like higher education, this institution specifically, it definitely affected my mental health, like way worse than I ever thought I could be affected personally, because I feel like this institution is very rigorous. So everybody that came here, we came here like, oh, we're smart, we got in, oh my gosh, da 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 da. But also, I never wanted to come to this school specifically. And being Nigerian, my parents chose it for me. What can you do? So when I came here and I started struggling, it took a toll on me, like for the worst, because I'm struggling in a place I never even wanted to come to. So it's like double whammy. Like, I'm struggling, I feel dumb. And I lost all faith in myself. It wasn't until I took a mental health break, you know, took some time off and came back. And now that I'm like actually doing better, I'm like, wow. So maybe my parents, I don't know, maybe I am the same smart girl that started back in 2016. Who would have thought? And even when you talk to the higher ups in this institution, like they say, they always push, you have to do well, you have to do well. Or I've been told that based on how I did in undergrad, I wouldn't even be where I am right now. And like they said, the people that you start with at age 17, 18 are the people you're supposed to go through the program with until you're like 24, 25. For me, like, I've now rotated in 3 different classes. And just thinking about that is like, it's a lot, because my original class is graduating next year and I'm still going to be here. You just really have to be very grounded. I feel like you need to come into higher education knowing your worth, not letting anything like deter you, and just being very strong in your mental health. If you didn't have mental health resources before higher education, even before you start to struggle, get it at that moment, get it at the very beginning. Because it's very, very easy to lose yourself, especially because, like they said, this is your formative years. So if you're constantly seeing the people that you were, like, let's say your high school colleagues or your middle school colleagues, and they're working, or they're doing big things, or they're hanging out, getting drinks after work, and you're just here like, you're thinking, oh my gosh, you have fear of missing out. When in reality, you're not missing out, you're just working towards that version of yourself where you want to be a successful physician.
Yeah, you said something that like was very important. The fact that we're doing this program, you know, people who normally do a graduate program, they're usually they've lived life, you know, for some time. They've had some time to take care of their mental health. They know what it is, because as a 17, 16 year, again, going back to being raised by Nigerian parents, it's not really something that's mentioned, right? So you don't even know what it is, and you just come into a program that doesn't even offer, they don't advertise the resources to you, and like you don't even know what's happening to you, right? Until later on. And that's just because of age, you know, maturity. And so I think, you know, that's definitely something that these kind of programs should look into. Well, they already have the resources, but it's something that should be improved, definitely, especially for us as a 18, 19, 20-year-old. You don't even really know what mental health is until someone tells you, compared to someone who is, you know, older and later down the line they decide to pursue graduate school. But that was a really, really good point. And I actually wanted,
I just wanted to say, like, you made a very good point about how nobody tells you what mental health is.
Yeah.
at this age. Like nobody tells you. Like you, it's just like, or you don't, or rather you don't know until somebody tells you. And then unfortunately for this program, nobody tells you until you're suffering. And
Yeah.
it's just, and even then it's like your peers are telling you when you're suffering. And it's like, wow, like I didn't even know I was deteriorating,
Yeah.
because it's like a gradual like deterioration of your
Yeah.
mind,
Yeah.
because it's like there's no time to focus on your mental health when your grades could plummet, when you have to pass these exams, when you have OSCEs, when you have to show up to classes that don't help you. It's like you have family issues, when you have to work to pay for school,
Someone
when you
just
don't
died and you still gotta come to class.
like exactly, like you just don't know. There's too much going on for you to even think about something as quote unquote
That's
mundane
real
as
life. Yeah.
as your life, as your literal livelihood. Like you're in survival mode. And so it's like when you're in survival mode, mental health becomes so irrelevant, because you're like, I need to figure out what I'm going to do the next day, how I'm going to survive to the next day. And it's just so sad. You made a very important point that nobody tells you. You don't know until somebody tells you, and nobody ever really tells you until you're suffering.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
me and Sherman were also mentioning, we were talking when we were talking, right? Um, we said how like no one really leaves. Everyone might look like, oh yeah, like even at this point as Zena, you started, you were about to start residency. But like if you really think about, are you the same person that you were when you came in? And when I say like the same person that you were, not like in terms of maturity, because of course there's growth, but in terms of like just your aspiration. I mean, I don't know if it's just me, but I just know I feel like leaving this program, or like just thinking about how I am now compared to how I was then, I felt like there were a lot more hobbies that I guess I was interested in then. Right now, like especially during like step 2, like when I was taking step 1, like dedicated, I think COVID happened around that time. I think I completely neglected a lot of my hobbies. I didn't really even know I know who I am, but I feel like there was a part of me that was definitely lost throughout 7 years that I'm still trying to find. Like, and now that we're done, it's like, okay, okay, now I can go back, but then I can't really remember what it is that I lost, but I can feel that I've lost something, especially when me and Charmaine went dancing. I was like, I used to dance a lot more. What happened? I was like, wait, what really happened? And I was like, it's school life, it just happened. I just started to think about all the other things that I might have lost like throughout this program.
Yeah. When I entered this program, I used to be a really good artist. Like I could draw, paint, anything. It didn't matter what it was, I could do it. And then, like you, along the way, like one of my best friends, Aaron, like he is a really good artist. And I remember like a couple years ago, I was in his room and I was like, wait, like I used to be able to draw too. Like, what?
You forget. You're like, wait.
When did I stop doing this? Like, I used to do it every single day, like religiously. And all of a sudden, it was like, I remembered that was a hobby I had. And I couldn't believe that, like, 17 years of me engaging in this hobby, I had lost it through a couple of years of being in this program. And it's just so scary how fast you can forget like your wants and your needs in place of survival. Like
Yeah.
it's so scary how fast it can happen.
And you forget. Like I did not even realize. I was like, wait, I used to dance. You used to draw religiously and you just forgot. Like like when did it stop? You don't know. You don't remember even making a decision not to stop. It just
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep, it just goes to show when you're in survival mode, like all your hobbies, they seem like, I guess, disturbances, or you just unconsciously lose it. Because I also used to dance. Like you can ask Gladys, I was suffering in that class, and I'm like, you used to be fit. What happened? And I didn't realize how like time just changed. Like you can dance in your shower, you can dance in your room, and just chill by yourself. But like dancing for pure like enjoyment, not just because I can right now, just because I happen to have time, let me do this. Like you never think of, oh, let me dance, I love to dance, let me dance. Like that doesn't come to mind. It just happens to be when it's something like scheduled, or you're just at your wit's end. That's when you remember what you used to love. But at that point, it's late because your mind has already deteriorated. Yes, it can go back, but you'll never get back to being that same person you were.
Right. And I need to always touch on what you say, Charmaine, because you made a very important point. I think I think in a program like this where you don't even notice when your mind or your mental health is starting to deteriorate, I would say that a good marker of it is when your normal hobbies, the things that you love, start to feel like disturbances. When that happens, that is when you know that your mental health is on the decline. I think that's the marker that I always start to use actually. Like whenever I have a depressive episode, even now, and I'm like, I don't want to work out, but I know working out is something I really enjoy doing, then I have to ask myself, like, so what about if I know I love doing this and I know it uplifts my mood, then what about how I'm feeling right now is making me not want to do this? And that's when I know I'm going through a very depressive episode. And then that's when I work out. So when you realize that your hobbies start to feel like, I know I love doing this, but I don't want to do it because of XYZ, then that's the time you need to especially do it.
Yes, I agree.
I think is it a part? Isn't that a part of the PHQ-9?
Yeah,
when you start, it is. It really is.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Powerful.
I completely agree because I feel like when you deal with your mental health, you're bettering yourself as a person. And even though depression, anxiety, all these mental issues are still stigmatized, it's very important to take them seriously. Especially, I know us all being Nigerian, like Gladys said in the very beginning, mental health isn't a real thing in an African household. Like, what is that? It took very long, very, 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 very long for my parents to actually realize that this is something serious, like that this is actually affecting me, because they didn't believe it. It wasn't until I got
they don't believe it. I think some of them don't they don't even recognize it. They might actually have mental health problems.
Oh my god! I always say this.
They think it's their personality. It's like no. You have
they think it's their personality, Gladys. Oh my god.
Well, let's not roast up right now. Let's not even roast them outside. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's okay, but no, for real, like it's very hard. So now you're balancing, dealing with your mental health yourself. Your support system that you always had isn't at, like, they're not able to realize that it's a real thing because of how they were raised, and the cycle just keeps on continuing. So it's like it's not their fault, but at the same time, having to deal with that in a rigorous program like the one we're in, plus like not getting the resources you should be getting from the school. It takes a toll. It takes a very, 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 very heavy toll on you and your mental and your overall being. In which case, like Azine said, when you start thinking that the things you do or the things you love to do are chores or they're disturbances, you definitely need to take a break from whatever you're doing, even if it's your exam is tomorrow. Well, I don't know if I could go that far. I'm not on that level of mental clarity yet, but you definitely need to take a break, a breather, and realize, okay, I like the way Azine said it, like really go through those steps. And if you can't, that you're not someone that you don't think you can work through it on your own, definitely try to get a therapist. I will keep stressing this. Get someone you can talk to, because your family, your friends, they're great, but they might not always be what you need or be able to tell you how to deal with it.
Yeah. Thank you, Charmaine. And just piggybacking off what you and Azine said, like, what about medicine? Do you think that, what we're talking about, forgetting your hobbies or finding them as disturbing, or just, your mental health just deteriorating over time, do you think this is unique to our program or it's unique to medicine? And what about medicine would you say perpetrates this? Because even the residency, I personally believe that residency might be a less toxic experience compared to the 7 years being here. But I know residency will still be hard, and I don't know whether or not I will have a mental, toll on my health. But yeah, what do you think?
I I can only, well, I guess I only feel comfortable speaking on how this program has made me feel.
Yeah.
I don't think it's specific. Well, I'll say this to be fair, even though the school's not fair to us, I
Mm-hmm.
don't think it's specific to our program.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I do think that it is very it does it's very demoralizing when a program tells you that they care about your mental health, that they have these resources available for you,
Mm-hmm.
but it's inadequate. And it just makes you feel like something's wrong with you when these things aren't advertised to you, because it's like, oh well, what if this is not a necessary resource, then why do I feel like I need it? Right? You start to feel very like something must be wrong with me, that
Yeah.
I can't get through this program
Oh my
without
God.
my mental health being deteriorating if these resources are not things that people actually utilize.
It's because
So
you
that
don't even know. You don't know that people are
exactly,
using it, and you don't know
exactly,
if people are using other things to help them with their with whatever
Mm-hmm.
they're going through.
exactly. And so I don't think it's unique to our program. I think like medicine is just such a funny field where it's like you can have like psychiatry and psychology as subsets of medicine,
Mm-hmm.
but the mental health of physicians or future physicians
Yeah.
is not at all like a priority to people. Even COVID, like the way people would treat doctors during COVID was just so like
Goodness.
disturbing.
Yeah.
It's like people are at the forefront of this pandemic, and whether you believe it's a hoax or not doesn't matter. It's like these people are at the front door, at the doorstep of this occurring, and you're still treating them like they owe you something, you know, like you're still treating them like they're your slaves, like they're like indentured servitude. It just feels very like
Yeah.
the hospital can be a very toxic environment because of the administration, because of the patients, because of your colleagues, because of your attendings. Like it can be very, very toxic. And it's just so like you just feel like you can't talk about how you're feeling without, like Charmaine touched on it, without feeling like somebody's gonna view you as weak or
Yeah.
inadequate or unprofessional. And it's like, no, I just need help. And
Mm-hmm.
why is this so need help? Like, why is that such a negative thing? Like, people just need help, and that should be normalized.
Yeah. I agree. I think that like this feeling of, your mental health deteriorating, I don't think it's unique to our program, but I do believe that the toxic environment and how much we face while trying to do well in this program is unique, just because like
Mhm.
other this is a BSMD program, so it's combined. You're with the same people from 17, 18 other people. They had a college experience and
Yeah.
they had medical school experience.
Yeah.
And just like I said, like they might have taken a break, they might have decided to bolster up their CV or their resume. Like we don't really get that chance. Everything you do is done within the school, within the same amount of people. And I feel like it's a very difficult field because you're supposed to be helping people. You came because you want to help people, but just like Azina said, who's helping you? Or if
Right.
you yourself need help, then you're viewed as less than, or you're not fit to help others, because if you can't help yourself, how do you expect to help others? That type of mentality. But I think that it's the opposite. I really do feel like if everybody struggles, if they say they're not struggling, it's a lie.
Right.
They might not struggle the same way, but everybody has struggles. And it's
Right.
how you overcome those struggles that helps dictate how you can help others. Because if you've never been through it, like, how can you help it? That's like saying someone who doesn't have any mental health issues, doesn't have any trauma. This is like in a perfect society. We all know everybody has trauma. But
Mhm.
trying to help somebody who has depression or anxiety or suicidal ideation. If you yourself have never felt the need to kill yourself, how can you help somebody that does feel the need to kill themselves? Like, how would that conversation even go?
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
It would clash woefully. So like, I feel like if we did get the resources we needed, or that it was at least advertised that these are the resources, and that it wasn't so congested, because there is a long line of people that have been asking for therapy like for years, and they still haven't gotten a therapist through the school.
Yeah.
Um, and maybe that's because we don't have enough like, therapists or psychiatrists to give, but that should be something that they invest in. Or like we only lean on each other, and that's great and all, but like as I said before, we're all struggling or we're all going through our own things, whether it's personal, whether it's school related. So like you're leaning on each other, but you all are going through so much. It can be draining.
Right.
So,
and like you said, like this is a BSMD program, and so there aren't that many in this country, and so it's kind of hard to even compare our program with other med schools because those are normal time frames.
That should be a BSM. It should be a BSMD coalition or something, support group.
Something, a support group, something. But there's really nothing. I mean, nothing I know of at least that exists out there. But it's like a program like this that takes you when you're 17.
Yeah.
At least some of us when we're 17, some of us when we're 18, and doesn't have a system in place for when, like we're still in a way going through puberty, and so it's like for a program to not have adequate resources for people who are still teenagers about to become doctors, that is a program that is, I don't see how it can function correctly. I don't see how they are doing well with attention. Like it just doesn't make sense for you to admit these students at this age and not do enough to keep them there, and also keep them intact. Like some of us are graduating thankfully on time, but not all of us are graduating intact. And I think that's such a I dropped that on y'all. It is very, very scary because it's like you have like these few months to gather yourself together again before residency. And like after a program like this,
let's talk about that. Yeah, continue.
I do think residency is gonna be relative like easier in relation to what our program was like. But I still think that if you are not graduating as whole as you were when you entered, and you're entering into residency, it's like when are you going to redevelop yourself? Like when's the time to redevelop yourself? Yeah, you have 2-3 months between graduation and when you start, but do those 2-3 months compensate for the 7 years that you lost? I don't think they do. And so then you're entering residency, that's 3-4 years, and then possibly fellowship, that's 1-2 years, and then you're becoming attending. When did you have time to revamp yourself, to rebuild yourself? When did you have the time to do that? And I think that's it's a very scary thing to realize that some people really are not graduating intact.
Wow. I was actually powerful. Because the thing is, you even said 2-3 months. To me, I finished rotations technically in November. And I still don't even think this is enough time to have like a fully, because even now, like I have to actually start adulting. And it's like, wow, I like all of a sudden, like, wait, what? I need a car, I need an apartment. I need to figure out insurance. Oh my gosh, loans. Wait, what? Why did I sign up for this? Like, wait, is this how much I took out for this? But anyways, it's like a Mr. Krabs moment right now, because it's like, wait, you guys are expecting I'm graduating, and then now you guys are putting me into the real world. Now I'm going to be a doctor. And it's like, and then all the trauma that you just experienced in these 7 years, now it's like all dawning on you. And even as I said again, I started in November, and then, I've had like, let's say 1 + 6, 7 months to myself, I guess. But those 7 months have included onboarding tasks and doing other things, matching interviews. But it still isn't enough time to like fully recuperate.
Exactly, because that's all you've known. Like you had to suppress your trauma in this program to graduate, and now it feels like without adequate time to recover, you have to suppress that additional trauma on top of your childhood trauma to thrive in residency. And then it's like childhood, just so much trauma. It's like when does it end? Like there's no time to recover. And how do you expect people to be functioning doctors when they haven't even taken care of themselves?
I fully agree.
Valid point.
Oh, sorry, did you want to say something, Charmaine?
Oh no, sorry, I just sighed.
About that.
That's a valid point.
Valid point.
It seems like medical education generally, at least in our program, hasn't really done a good job of encouraging mental health or mental wellness overall. So what would you say can be done to improve it? I know one thing, I think I quickly mentioned, oh, maybe there should be a BSMD coalition or alliance or whatever it is, support group. But is there anything that these institutions can do better in case, administrator is listening to us? Highly unlikely, but just in case. Or maybe it could be something that other medical students can actually put into play.
So, you got it.
No, Charmaine, go ahead.
So I think that they should destigmatize prescriptive students, students who take an extra year or so to do well. And that they should take a vested interest in the well-being of their students, because if your students aren't mentally well, then they're probably not going to thrive. And if we want to say, give them the benefit of the doubt of, not even give them the benefit of the doubt, if they want to have an interest that is more selfish, if your students do well, you have a good retention rate. If your retention rate is good, the medical school looks good. So all in all,
they get money at the end,
Exactly. I also feel like kind of what you said. I think they need to discuss with other medical schools who have had successful mental health, mental health programs, or they just their students show an overall good well-being. And I know that's going to be very hard because medical school is difficult everywhere, but if they can take note of what's working in other schools, like maybe they can help us better. And yeah, we're still even though we're BSMD program, we're still a very new medical school. So it will take time for them to get their bearings, but I feel like they should look towards other medical schools to see what works so they can better help us. Yeah, and I think they need to stop honing in on, oh, you have to do well, you shouldn't do any extracurriculars, because that's a lot of the things that I feel like has been drummed into us since we started at 17, 18, that you need to focus only on this school. That's it. If you're doing something else and you fail, it's your fault because you chose to do something else, like you chose to have an extracurricular. Ooh, my words. And that's just that's a very toxic environment to grow up in. And especially when you're not even helping the students that are suffering, academically, where they may have failed or anything like that, the overall school will take on that tone, because at the end of the day, you're still faculty, you're still the superior. So if you yourself seems to be looking down on these students that are suffering, the entire student body will start looking at the students that are suffering as if they're less than. And that is not conducive to mental health of the students who are struggling. And that's not conducive to even the people that are judging them, because you're supposed to be a future physician. So you're supposed to have, compassion and competency. And that does not demonstrate having, empathy or emotional competency. That's it.
We really did grow up in this program. And that's just such a scary realization to make, growing up with Nigerian parents and landing yourself in a program that claims to care about you but then doesn't. And so it's almost like you're perpetuating that household again. And so you're spending your childhood, your teenage years, your entire adult life in a household basically that doesn't care about your mental health. And so you have to stay in survival mode, but you also have to realize that the real world doesn't really care about where you came from. And so you have to also still nurture that within yourself. And so it's like juggling, I need to pass my exams, I need to survive, versus, but I'm dying inside. How do I save myself? And it's it's such a tough thing to even think about until you get to this point of med school where you finish your rotations, you're done with interview season, and you feel like you can finally breathe. But it's you don't know how to breathe, right? Because you've spent all your time working. And so even that's something I also want to touch on. It's so hard for me to have time off, to enjoy my vacation time, because I'm so used to always working that having free time is an anomaly to me. I always find myself trying to fill that time with something else because that's all I've ever known. And so I don't even as much as I've always wanted to have time to rest, I don't know how to rest. And that's something that I'm trying to figure it out before I start residency, because then you don't have time to rest then. But it's even like you, Glass, I kind of stopped my rotations in October-ish. And it's even from that point on till now, I still don't know how to rest. And that's such an important thing to know how to do, that you're not really taught, like how to like not touch your books, like even turn off your TV, turn off your laptop, just sit and be comfortable with your own free time. I don't think I have mastered that yet, and nobody's ever going to teach that to you. But you lose that in this program, and you lose that in medicine, and you lose that in residency. But you have to, as an adult, you have to learn how to gain that back and to keep that going.
Mm. Is there a podcast you've been listening to during like like is there a mantra? Is there a motivational speaker that you tune into every morning?
No, I've been doing therapy for
Um,
I started therapy January 2019, and then I did that for like a year, and then COVID happened, and then I didn't start again until September of 2021.
yeah.
So I've been in therapy for, I would say, a total of a year and some change. And I think that's definitely helped me a lot. In the interim, I do listen to like this podcast called the Self Love Fix. It's on Spotify. It might also be on Apple Play. I don't know if that's what you guys call it. Um, but it basically is this podcast about how to learn to love yourself again after all this trauma you've experienced. And the things that she usually talks about trauma in the context of relationships, but she also talks about in the context of like friendships, like family, um, your love life if you care, if you have that. And I think podcast really, like, it really did help me. I've always known these things that she says. I've always known them, but it's nice to hear it like reinforced
Yeah.
by somebody who doesn't know you and doesn't know what you've been through. But it's almost like reading out of your diary, and it's telling you like these are things that you've gone through, and it's okay that you went through it, but it's still important for you to pull yourself out of it because nobody else will. And I think that's just such an important thing to remember as you navigate this program, when you leave this program, when you get well into adulthood. Just remember that like you didn't dig this hole that you're in, but it's not helping you if you keep digging it. Like you got to get yourself out of this hole.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, like sometimes the trauma we experience, what is not our fault, is done onto us. But you can't navigate through life hoping somebody else gives you closure, because then you're never gonna get that from somebody else. You got to give that to yourself.
Yeah. Wow. Powerful. 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 This actually ties into the last question. But you can continue on with what you're saying, or Charmaine, you have anything else to add to what Zini said, like in terms of resources? But the question really is, when should you seek therapy? It seems like the point at which you should seek therapy is when you feel like maybe the hobbies or the things I used to love don't seem very much enticing to you. Or you can also take a look at the PHQ-9 or 2 and see if, you can also, I guess, you can answer those questions on your own as well, but it's advisable that you actually see someone, a physician, psychiatrist, psychologist, for them to ask you those questions as well, and then possibly come up with a solution or find a way to help you. But when should you seek therapy and other forms of mental health resources? And what other forms of I think one thing that we did mention was therapy, but is there any other form of help that people can seek for? And when do you think is, other than, I guess, again, you can go to the PHQ-9, PHQ-2 and check those out. But I just wanted to know if this, at any point, do you think, at any other point, do you think is it very important for other people to like seek that same therapy or other forms of mental health resources?
I would say, I
If
agree
you
with
have
Sharm.
any like podcasts or anything else that you want to suggest, go ahead and do that now.
I agree with Charmaine in the sense that I think everyone should be in therapy. I think you should start them young, to be honest. But I think the moment you hear this podcast, get yourself a therapist if you can afford it. If you have insurance, get yourself a therapist. There are so many things that you don't realize you've suffered, because like depression and anxiety cause memory loss. They cause severe memory loss. So, like,
Really?
it's severe. It's like it's so close to dementia. It's so scary. It's there's some things that you don't even realize you've experienced because you have suppressed those memories. And therapy will really unlock those things because eventually they're going to come out. Like you might be suppressing it now because, again, survival mode. But when you're no longer in survival mode, those memories are going to come back and they're going to come back full force. And so you want to have the tools. I remember one time I was working out, and this memory, I was listening to the self-love podcast, and out of the blue, this memory of like some memory from my childhood came, and I just started crying in the middle of my workout, just bawling my eyes out. And I was like, why am I was like, where is this? I don't even know where that memory came from. It wasn't triggered by anything she said. It just came out of nowhere. And I just found myself sitting on my floor crying. And it was like if I didn't have the tools I had learned from therapy and how to regulate my emotions when these things happen, it's like I would have had to end my workout, sit on the floor, cry, wipe my tears, and not feel like I could pick myself back up. And so the moment you hear this podcast, the moment you watch this video, get yourself a therapist if you can afford it, because it will seriously save your life. Like it will save your life. It may not be now that you think you need it, but eventually, I promise you, therapy saved my life.
Wow. Wow. Oh, thank you for sharing.
Very, very powerful. But yeah, I also agree. I mean, I don't have like an age that you should go into therapy, but I definitely believe everybody should be in therapy. Um, just judging from Azina's experience, like she said it saved her life, and I'm not gonna hold you. Like I had a therapist. I got therapy in September 2019, and then it stopped during COVID, March 2020. And then I had one again from June 2021, but then it ended because, our times no longer aligned. So that ended in August of 2021. And I've been therapyless since then, unfortunately. But, I will say that having a therapist, when I did have one, it was very beneficial because I was able to air out some things that I didn't even know bothered me, or things that I didn't realize like I had issue with until I spoke about it. And it's like I'm getting very like emotionally invested in what I'm saying. I'm like, whoa, where did this come from? And I would say that like even if you don't have any problems or you don't think you have any problems, just invest in therapy because it can like literally save your life, just like how she said. If you need to be on medication, do it. Do not think of the stigma. Like
Yeah.
it's literally, it will save your life, because I don't know how deep anybody's trauma, anybody's mental health goes, but if you're someone and you know that you have depression, anxiety, and that maybe even with your depression it's severe to the point that you may have suicidal ideation, like definitely go see a therapist, go get checked out by a psychiatrist, psychologist, anything, just in case you may need medications to regulate yourself. And there's no shame in that, like absolutely none. Some people just need extra help to live their life, and just make sure that you stay on top of the things that you used to love, that even if you do not have the money or you don't have the time to see a specialist, you're at least able to regulate yourself by doing things that you love. Never lose what you love for the sake of school or for the sake of anything. Don't let your value be diminished just because you're suffering mentally. It's part of life.
And I would say another thing is if you can't afford therapy or if it's difficult getting a therapist, there's so much power in journaling.
Yes.
There's just so much power in like setting aside like 5-10 minutes of your day to like write about either what you're grateful for, what's bothered you throughout the day, what you're hopeful for, like whatever comes to mind. I think there is so much power to like just like venting to a piece of paper.
Yeah.
I know some people who vent to a piece of paper and they burn it after. But even just keeping a record of like how you felt can and then looking back on that can show you how much progress you've made throughout the years, throughout the week, throughout the day. It's there's so much power in like writing in a journal that I think is just so underrated.
Yeah. It's actually, I there was a meme, or it was a drawing that I saw where there was someone like she was filled up in red, basically to show like, and then she was sitting down, and then as she started writing, all that like redness started to transfer onto the paper.
Exactly.
So
I love that image.
it went to show like how much we're keeping inside. I think that's why therapists are so sometimes I also worry for the therapists too, because you know they're taking so much. They're taking so much. I don't know how they cope. But we won't go into that. But like again, you know, journaling journaling is so important. I think it just allows you to get rid of all the things that you're bottling up, you know, all the anger, all of the emotions. And I think for me, I actually use journaling as part of my therapy as well. I use journaling and prayer as a therapy, because no, of course there's not things that there's things that you can't tell a person, right? But the fact that I can write it down on a piece of paper, and that piece of paper isn't really going anywhere, or again, you can shred it up into pieces or burn it up. But the second person I use, I definitely pray to God, and that's a way of me venting as well. Because at least for me, I know that He's listening. So those are my two ways of definitely venting. And another thing that I wanted to mention as a form of, I guess, as a way of taking care of your mental health is that, you know, again, we need to think, when we think of health, it's physical, it's mental, it's emotional. And, you know, your physical health is largely determined by what you put in, you know, the food and physical food. And for mental health, I think what's considered food, as in terms of like, you know, what you're taking, is the things that you're taking in. So the things you hear and the things you see is what really affects.
Wow.
So I think it's very important, you know, to, you know, monitor the things that you listen to. Again, that's why podcasts are also important. You know, listen to things that uplift you, you know, music that uplift you. Podcasts that uplift you, even the people around you. If you realize that, you know, there's a certain group of people that just speak negativity into your life, where like say a lot of negative things, these are things that you're hearing, and it also affects your mental health. And this is all food that you're taking in. So if you're listening to rubbish, you have rubbish friends. You know, your mindset is going to be rubbish. Like it just makes sense, right? So I think it's just important to definitely, you know, be careful of the things you listen to and the things that you look at. It definitely helps and affects our mentalities. So yeah, that's really one thing that I wanted to mention. So before we, you know, end for tonight, are there any last words, any last things that you like to say?
For anyone listening to this, you're gonna get through whatever you're going through. Like, I used to hate hearing that. When I was like depressed or suicidal, I used to hate when people would say like, "It's gonna get better," because it's like all you can see is how you are now. Like the present day is all you can see, all you can think about. Like you can't even think about the future.
Yeah.
But I promise you, as somebody who has wanted to lead this program time and time again, it will get better. Like life will get better. Like better things are coming. Like it's on the horizon, and it's just there are just a lot of peaks and valleys, but better things are coming, I promise you. And if you just feel like stuck or stagnant, there are people who everyone around you feels the same way. Like Charmaine said, people are just hiding it. Or they're doing a good job of hiding it. And you don't have to follow in their footsteps. Like you are allowed to show how you feel, and you're not weak for feeling it. But I promise you, things will get better. It just requires a little bit of patience.
Bounce off of what both of you said, like prayer is very important. Like having a support system, whether it's religion or like friend, family, or like just anywhere you feel supported, it's very important to, you know, keep up with that. Don't lose that. It's very easy to lose your religion specifically while in school, or just lose your faith because you're like, I'm struggling. Why am I here if I'm struggling? Like if this was meant to be for me, why am I suffering so much and everything? But like I'm telling you, I'm a testimony. I'm still here. So that's really saying something. That like whatever the Lord has for you will be yours. Like never doubt.
And it reminds me of the verse, do not be anxious about anything. Instead, put everything in prayer and supplication, so that the peace that passes all understanding will guard your heart and your mind. So he literally says, do not worry about anything. Like literally prayer works. But continue.
Yes, no, I completely agree. And it took me so long to see that, like, even though I was praying and everything, I was just like,
but you're still worried. That's the thing.
Yeah,
you're praying and
it's
then
very
you're
hard.
worried.
But also I'd say beware of toxic positivity. Do not think that because you have a great life, like, oh my gosh, I'm so blessed. I have a family that loves me. I have food that I can eat. I have a bed I can sleep on. Don't think that because you have all of that, you're incapable of having depression, suicidal ideation, or anxiety. Like it does not, they're not mutually exclusive. It's an issue. It's a health issue.
But I just want to also touch on the power of prayer and just say, like, nothing too hard for God. Like there is nothing too hard for your creator. So whatever you feel like you're going through, there is a way out of it. And you just have to be patient. There's nothing too hard for God.
Yeah. Definitely don't stress yourself over something that's already been determined. Your success, happiness in the future is determined. Your future is already is set in stone, really. And it's just for you to get there and to learn the lessons that you need to learn. And we're still young, like it's not gonna be hope by 30s, hopefully God's grace things are better. But right now, honestly, are the grinding, building, struggle times. I'm not saying that we should perpetually be struggling, but it's really grinding now. So we can just get through it and hopefully get to the end goal. It'll be all worth it. But in the meantime, definitely take care of your mental health and all other aspects in order for you to be that, great person that you envision for the future.
Yeah, very well said.
Wow. Okay. Anything else?
I love
be
you
the
guys.
best person you can be. Yes. I love you both too.
I'm saying anything right now. All right. Thank you so much, Charmaine and Azine, for joining me tonight. This is a great talk. I think that it will help so many people. I think so many people will be blessed by this as well. Thank you for just emphasizing the fact that mental health, having a mental issue or whatever it is that you might be quote unquote diagnosed with, it is not a stigma. It's a part of it's a part of growing, learning what mental health is, taking care of it, and finding out who you really are in the process of it all. So thank you so much, ladies. And once again, you can follow them on social media as well. Azine, I mean, you guys can say your social media account if you want to. You don't have to if you don't want people to stalk you, but
my account is Z the MD. That's ZEE.BTHE.MD.
Hey, okay. You follow them on Instagram and you can see more posts from them. And I'm sure that you will be blessed just by following them. So once again, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. If you want to see more, make sure you click that notification bell and call it a day. All right. Thank you, ladies. Bye.
Thank you for having us. Bye.